Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Fire Emblem Heroes. Today I am going to review all 7 new weapons that came with the Refinery update. There's the 2 Robins, Navarre, Ogma, and the 3 Whitewing Sisters, which are Catria, Palla, and Est. I won't recommend any builds because it's hard to recommend builds nowadays. There's just so many ways to build one unit, and there's so many game modes now, and you kind of have to build differently for each mode. Plus, synergizing the unit with your team is very important, so instead, if you have any questions about builds, you can ask me in the comments on Twitter or private message me on Discord. Let's start with the Robins. Both male and female Robin got the same upgrade. They basically got 14 Might Raven Tomes that have Spectrum Tactics 2. At the start of the turn, they grant +4 in all combat stats to allies within 2 spaces, only if the number of that ally's movement type on the team is less than or equal than 2. It's obviously not a combat weapon, so a lot of people will just write it off immediately, but I think support weapons nowadays are a lot more valuable than most pure power weapons if you take into consideration all the game modes and the arena changes. I know that I used to think Titania's Refine was just average, but it's actually really good now for Ether Raids and the cheerleading arena meta. Robin's Refine is no different. It doesn't do anything for himself, but having all the display buffs put into one weapon or slot allows the team to run more combat buffs, and that's very convenient. As for the Raven Tome part of the weapon, it's always going to have some use if you use Robin as like a tech option to counter colorless and either red or blue depending on which Robin we're talking about. Having tech units for countering specific foes was already useful for Arena Assault. Now they are especially important for Ether Raids. So yeah, I think the Robin Refines are definitely good and viable. I think female Robin is a little bit more useful because of her color due to Reinhardt's being on almost every single Ether Raid defense team. Next up is Navarre Scarlet Sword. It accelerates special trigger cooldown count -1. Then at the start of turn 1, he's granted special cooldown count -2. Basically, in the beginning of the match, 3 special cooldown is reduced right away, which means he has the potential to trigger high costing specials on turn 1. Turn 1 Ether is possible, same goes with Miracle, Gale Force, and Blue Flame, as long as he is equipped with Quicken Pulse and has one person with Infantry Pulse on the team. Without Infantry Pulse, he can still use AoE specials on turn 1, which can be incredibly powerful. In theory, he would be a really good unit at assassinating one foe, and that's it, kinda like the one-shot Ophelia builds. However, the problem with Navarre is that his stats are very mediocre and he's not ranged like Ophelia. He's not really a threat at all if you, let's say, find him on an Ether Raid defense team. On an offensive team, however, that's where he has potential, but he's going to require a lot of things, mainly to help out his attack stat. Things that can help him out are multiple merges, summoner support, cohesive team buffs, bonus unit buffs when he's part of the rotation, and things like that. If you have special spiral fodder for him, then he could definitely use that as well. Yeah, pretty good Refine. He for sure has the coolest weapon out of the 7 in my opinion. His stats are really the only thing holding him back. With all that being said, I think his weapon is not worth it for the average player because he needs a lot of help to really stand out, but it's a cool weapon. Next up is Ogma. He loses his Brave Sword and instead he gets a Heavy Blade 3 effect plus a 2-space bond skill that grants attack and speed by 4 to Ogma if a flying or infantry ally is within 2 spaces of him. It complements his stat line very well because he naturally already has great attack and good speed. If you have like a +10 Ogma, I mean, you can make a very disgusting Ogma build. He just has so many possibilities when it comes down to builds. He can run player phase, enemy phase, or mixed phase sets as long as he has a flyer and infantry ally next to him. Just as a build example, here's a mixed phase set with a plus speed minus resistance +10 Ogma. Gladiator's Blade works from 2 spaces away, so attack speed solo can work. Mythic Boost allows him to heal 6 HP after every fight on either phase, and it gets rid of his vulnerability versus foes that have an adaptive weapon such as Felicia. And of course, Rest Tactic is there because he's best used on a mixed emblem team and his resistance stat is garbage, so he himself doesn't need the resistance buff. You could switch attack speed solo and close defense out for bond skills instead, but I don't really like 1-space bond skills on melee units because it's kinda a hassle trying to use bond skills on the player phase. I mean, if you only use them on the enemy phase, then I guess it's fine, but overall, it's an extremely good Refine. I don't think this weapon makes him top tier, but he is for sure a very good unit right now. And the last Refines are the Whitewing Sisters. They all retain the effects from their original weapon. In addition, they got a triangle attack like effect. If there's 2 or more flowers within 2 spaces of the unit is granted +3 in all combat stats during combat and gets to attack twice, essentially a brave weapon. I think it's apparent that these are good refines as long as you are able to use the effect, meaning that you are using these units on an all flower team and have correct positioning. You are probably curious about which Whitewing got the best refine. I think Est and Catria are for sure the best ones out of the three. Est has armor effectiveness and she naturally has really good attack with poor speed. She has 35 attack and 38 with a boon, so a brave effect with a stat boost fits perfectly with her style. Just stack attack buffs on her like Death Blow 4 or something and she's going to be able to win most armor matchups. Catria is kind of like the total opposite of Est. She has mediocre attack with good speed and a special cooldown reduction effect. She's not going to win most fights by two-shotting foes like Est does. Instead, she can quad attack and activate specials or even multiple specials in a single fight, depending on which special you give her. Palla, I would say, is the weakest one, but I'm not saying that she's bad. Green units by far have the tankiest units such as Surtur, Brave Ephraim, all the Hectors, and so on and so forth. So having a dedicated green killer on your team is not bad at all. Also, because of her balanced bulk and the buff that she's gaining from the weapon refine, she can be used on both phases as an offensive and defensive unit. So yeah, all three of them are great. Palla is a little bit more linear than the other two, but she's still very useful nonetheless. Alright, so I think the best refines out of the bunch is probably Ogma's. I think his weapon improves the unit the most. The Whitewing Sisters and the Robins are second best. I would put Navarre in last place because I feel like he needs too much help in order to be great. However, I do think his refine is the most interesting. All in all, every single refine in this batch are worth it if you plan to heavily invest in any of these characters. And that's going to be it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed my review on the new weapons. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.